Welcome everyone to our fine art reproduction tutorial. Always a pleasure to catch up and in the service of the workshop and your engagement with this most challenging of disciplines. It's an absolute pleasure to try and clarify, extend and embed at least our experience, our understanding, our research into what you are also doing to improve the whole process. Today is largely a series of updates, that's the easiest way of describing them, to do with key components within our fine art reprographic cultural heritage workflows. So I'm going to do my best along the way to also point you to the workshop's resources themselves and their application in your own workflows with your own priorities and outcomes in mind, where the extended discussion takes place. Let's have a look at the topics as I've assembled them for today. And the first topic is a carry on from last week's Affinity Workflows tutorial. Now reconfigured in the world of cultural heritage reproduction, what are we actually trying to achieve? In the sense that generative AI and how it affects both traditions can be a blessing and a curse unless we are the ones, as Andre said last week, we are the ones coercing it to be in the service of what it is we're needing to do. We then come to a soft proofing workflow update, but also these ongoing topics, works on paper and print derivatives, are really one topic with several variations, both in pre-production but also in post-production and the deliverables we end up producing. So let's begin with ISO 3664 to clarify our research. And here, section 4.2, conditions for critical comparison. P1 for reflection works, and critical comparison is the takeaway hint. But what is the standard? The illuminance alone, 2000 lux, plus or minus 250 lux. This is rather bright illumination within the range of illuminance levels that we typically will view works under, but it's in the higher register. Then why do we have section 4.3, the P2 viewing conditions for the practical appraisal of prints? Not the critical appraisal, the practical appraisal. And there's that 400 to 500 lux we have also arrived at in our research. So there's a huge discrepancy, but it's not hard to understand if we add to our ISO 3664 standard some other observations. Why, for critical appraisal, am I looking at the original, for example, compared to a print reproduction? Why am I looking at these works under such intense light? It's got to do with scotopic versus photopic vision, rods versus cones. And by getting up around that 2000 lux, our scotopic vision, the sense of light and dark, is reduced in favor of those cones around our fovea and our color acuity. Because what I'm wanting to adjudicate, what I'm wanting to compare and contrast is the color composition in terms of the conveyance of the feeling of the original in its reproduction. We're viewing this under really bright conditions because it's supporting those critical colorimetric judgments. Except up until quite recently, our beautiful monitors like this ASO color edge screen that I'm viewing, working on and recording on, that's not going to get anywhere near that. So we've needed this second P2 viewing condition in order to have a viewing standard that we can marry to the range of brightnesses our state-of-the-art graphics monitors can meet. Now, with HDR technology in our monitors and so on, without sacrificing longevity necessarily, we're now getting up to that brightness. So these standards, in one sense, are becoming right to being revised yet again. That's why we've got these two standards. But also, if you remember our lighting theory paper, on the very first page, where I extend the discussion embedded in those standards, because there's the archival 50 lux of our museums, our national galleries, and there's an average brightness mid-morning, mid-afternoon here with our walls of glass in the front of our studio. And look what's right in the middle, that 400 to 500 lux. So it's also putting a peg in the ground, that P2 viewing condition for soft proofing, for comparing screens to prints and what have you, but not necessarily comparing them critically to the originals, nor our printed or other reproductions, derivatives being compared to the originals under more critical conditions. So that's the setup in trying to address this update and the questions that have come to us. And in particular, this workflow as a whole, from the preservation file to a convincing derivative that matches the feeling of the original. But it also begs a really important question. What are we soft proofing? Now, I'm going to look at three examples: the production of preservation assets, the production of specific derivatives, in this case, limited edition prints, but also referencing pre-press scholarly publications. So let's jump to our Capture One archival master workflow and go to page 10. and using our classic color checker, matte surface, reprographic verification target, and the averaged references, LAB, L-star references for those patches. Now, here I am working with our Phase 1 IQ4 150 digital back, or our 400 megapixel multi-shot Hasselblad, working with a default input profile and a linear tone response curve, rounding the values up from 2 decimal places without doing anything else. And look how close these numbers already are. Now, this is entirely about producing preservation assets, preservation masters, where the correlation is entirely numerical. This is the first stage of our cultural heritage, fine art reproduction workflows. Irrespective of what the outcomes are going to be, we always start with this production of preservation assets. The important distinction is these are according to the objective numerical equivalency. That's why they're in standards, because we can measure these things, not just, oh, I like that, or that looks a little warm. Not our interpretive, subjective engagement with all of the above. No, this is verifiable, this is provable, this is something we can adjust apparatus, process to accommodate and exceed, in some cases, the requirements embedded in our cultural heritage ISOs. But it's worth saying, as I always do, never forget an ISO is ground zero. It's where you begin. Our recommendation is you start here, 6,500 degrees Kelvin, blah, blah, blah. It's a starting point. And as we always say so often, and this applies to all of these topics today, soft proofing, hard proofing, and so on, we inevitably need to go beyond ISO in order to achieve the results that are being required, not just by ourselves or the curators or the artists or other clients, but just out of the volition of what we're doing in of itself. And as it pertains to works on paper reproduction and limited edition print reproductions and these other updates that we're looking at, what are we soft proofing is a critical component of this discussion. But there's also this acknowledgement that even if my main aim is reproducing a friend's painting for web distribution, client access, inclusion in a scholarly book, or for limited edition prints, if that's the emphasis, the derivatives, we still always begin with the numerical equivalency embedded in the preservation master. So in thinking the entirety of this workflow through, from the preservation file all the way to derivatives, well, we've got our 2 monitor calibration standards, ISO 3664 and of course 12646, which is displays for color proofing characteristics. But now hang on, if a preservation asset is being created numerically, that's its verification, that's what we're trying to achieve with whatever camera system, lighting and so forth, then I could be doing this on a black and white monitor because none of that judgment is visual. It's all numerical. Therefore, while we might as well be ISO 3664 compliant in our base monitor calibration while creating preservation assets in our Cultural Heritage Technical Report 12643, best practices in digital capture of cultural heritage material, we then are only worried about soft proofing for derivative production. And in our interpretation of these standards, we have to add more considerations than are in the standards, and not the least of which is the contrast ratio of the monitor relative to the contrast ratio of the original that we're trying to reproduce. And we've got to start somewhere, so a semi-gloss commercial resin-coated photographic paper, 200:1 contrast ratio, that's as good a place to start our beyond ISO calibrations, where the main differences are in the white point the screen is calibrated to. For the simple reason, we need to add to that preservation asset workflow a light source illuminating in a soft proofing workflow the thing we're proofing the screen to, for example, a print. And therefore, the universal light source, that's noonday sunshine around a correlated 5,000 degree Kelvin white point, that is the standard against which we judge these prints. So it's now all about monitor calibration for derivatives. But what about these P1 critical comparison viewing conditions, where we're trying to evaluate the accuracy of a hard copy derivative, the reproduction in a book, a limited edition print, with the original under these much brighter conditions? Of course, the monitor is not involved at all in that appraisal. It doesn't matter whether the white of the paper the limited edition print is printed on does or doesn't match the calibrated white point of my screen. But hang on, we're now talking about hard proofing. And in our case, we are using not our proofing lamps. We're using the very light sources that we are illuminating the original work with, both in the capture, but also the comparison of the hard copy limited edition reproduction print with the original under those conditions. This is now being compared to the original, which opens a can of worms because the medium that hard copy reproduction is printed on, how does that correlate with the white point, not of the light source, that's consistent, but the white point of the original we are capturing and then viewing on screen? But without soft proofing in the hard copy workflow, we're going to need to make untold test prints trying to match those two. It'll be no faster than working at the speed of a dripping tap in the darkness of a dark room. So without an advanced monitor calibration going beyond ISO in order to match more critically, more convincingly, the hard copy reproduction with the original, we need to be able to quickly and effortlessly tweak the derivative. At least that's my argument for advanced monitor calibrations, even when the objective at the end of the day is a hard copy reproduction that carries the feeling, the artistic intent, the scholarship, and all of those other concerns that we are concerned about on behalf of cultural heritage, artists, clients, you name it. But as I said, this opens a can of worms. For example, let's look at my friend Charles's watercolour painting. We've ticked all the boxes in our preservation asset. Doesn't mean, though, that this immediately translates into a satisfactory print. Absolutely not. It's almost inevitable, despite reproducing perfectly those numerical equivalencies, due to a torrid range of reasons, not the least of which is fluorescence in substrates, fluorescence in pigments. There's all sorts of impediments lying in our way, just waiting for us to fail and suffer unnecessarily. Now, here's a classic example, the reproduction that is going to be printed in the latest scholarly publication. I'm in Photoshop, and we have application level soft proofing. Let's say it's being reproduced on type 1 coated paper to the Fogger 39 standard. In Photoshop, I'm able to simulate the paper color encoded in that profile. But hang on, this is not my profile. This is the ISO 12647 Fogger 39 offset printing standard. So we have to, in this case, rely on a standard that I can't hardware calibrate my monitor to, at least not yet, because no proofs have yet come back from prepress for me to even begin that conversation between their proofs under my proofing lights and my beautiful hardware calibrated screen. I have to resort to the application level soft proofing. Now let's have a look at this. Monitor profile, proofing. Here is my ISO 12646 base calibration, and I can see the warmth inherent in the watercolor paper Charles has painted on. You can even see it in the very neutral QP grayscale. Now, the white point in our Fogger 39 offset printing standard, the LABB is -2, completely the opposite side of our D50 graphic arts peg in the ground, our ISO 12646 calibration of our advanced graphics monitor display. So straight away, I need to work above and beyond what I have captured numerically accurately in the preservation asset in order to reinstate in this watercolor reproduction the feeling of the coloration and those other scholarly and artistic values that are in the original. Here in Photoshop, I'm then adding all manner of adjustments to try and achieve that outcome. Not forgetting the incredibly small gamut volume this standard is working to and other challenges along the way. We just can't take a preservation asset, no matter how accurately we have achieved that numerical correlation, and make a print and have it work on any paper. But it also then begs a whole series of other issues. And here's another watercolor with some 3D elements. Here was a neutral reproduction, as it appears to my eye under D50 illumination. But this work, the paper it's on, has no fluorescing agents, no optical brightening agents for us to worry about. When we run our 365 nanometer UV torch over these pigments in this work, there's no fluorescence to worry about. But for whatever reason, printing this on an optically brightened, enhanced paper, and here is the visual result of printing it on a moderately fluorescing paper, completely destroys the appearance and the feeling, the scholarship, the intent, and everything else that goes with it, including my credibility as a cultural heritage reprographer. But this is viewing this work reproduced on this optically enhanced, optically brightened paper under UV excitation, under our standard illuminant. This is what happens when the same paper is now inspected without that UV excitation, for example, under our typical LED illumination today. And the image turns into this disgusting, ugly, greenish yellow because the pigments we need to add to counteract that fluorescence when there's no UV light. Excess cyan and yellow pigments results in this mess. So with this in mind, let's go to another paper, our soft proofing practice paper. Don't need to go further than page 2 and the introduction. In creative printmaking, a print's appearance under different viewing conditions is mainly an aesthetic problem, while the accuracy of its soft proof is primarily an efficiency and productivity issue. But when we then think about the measurement conditions that we use our apparatus, our instrumentation, to try and measure paper white, and try and characterize these things numerically so we can work with them on screens and Photoshop and so on, according to how we also see and feel them, ISO 13655 categorically states, and this is the graphic technology, spectral measurement and colorimetric computation for graphic arts images standard, it's not expected that M1 colorimetric data will also provide an absolute correlation with visual color appearance. That's not what it's designed to do. It's designed for inter-instrument operability. Now have a look at this. Now we're into derivatives. It works on paper, reproduction of paper white accurately and convincingly, but also limited edition prints. So here are my spectral measurements of a 90% and a 50% L-star neutral patch. With OBA enhancement turned on, you can see the blueness in M1 measurement mode with UV illumination. Where paper white is covered by less grey and black inks, the fluorescence is peaking. But as we add more and more pigment, such as Epson's ultrachrome black, grey, light grey, and so on inks, they are reducing the amount of light reflecting off the fluorescing substrate, and therefore the fluorescence is much less in midtones and almost completely absent in shadows. Now, with the UV cut, the M2 measurement mode, you can see the profound difference. Even though optical brightening agents are present in the substrate, they are not being excited. There is no fluorescence. And the appearance of highlights and midtones, let alone shadows, is much more consistent with our everyday observation under such conditions. But, hang on, we're now wanting soft proof to match the appearance of these patches. On my state-of-the-art ISO 12646 calibrated graphics monitor, there's the spectral distribution of the highlights, there's the spectral distribution of the neutral midtones. We can easily match OBA-free papers on screen. We haven't got to open matching OBA-enhanced papers under UV excitation. We can calibrate the white points to match under UV excitation based on not numbers, but my judgment under these conditions. The problem then is when we start trying to adjust our primaries and secondary colors in an advanced, beyond ISO, hardware calibration, we can't simultaneously get fluorescent paper white and those colors accurately determined because there is no fluorescence coming out of our monitor. As Andre reminded me, we don't spend all day staring at the sun. For occupational health and safety reasons alone, we cannot have UV radiation coming out of this monitor. Therefore, we have to put in place workflows, beginning with the selection of media that best complements the original work, especially now with Canson Infinity's warm tone and cool tone pure white versions of their most famous papers, Acreol, Reeves, BFK, and so on. We can much more easily have a print derivative substrate whose presence, whose appearance is visually, colorimetrically much closer to the original. This conclusion of ours from years of research, experimentation, trying to interpret all of this based on all of these metrics, scientific, numerical, according to the standards and so forth, all the way through to the feelings on the matter. How does my reproduction on screen, in print, in publication feel? Does it emanate the same ideas, associations that I take from the original itself, let alone the artist were satisfying their scholarship, their emotional, intellectual, political, cultural intent? And even when we're under P1, comparing hard copy originals to the original work of art, even under those conditions, we need advanced hardware calibration soft proofing so that with just a couple of tests on whatever the media is the reproduction's being made on, and that saves an enormous amount of time. But that does require every component in our color managed workflows to be characterized precisely according to the demands on behalf of what they're trying to do on our behalf. All right. As always, it's a delight to try and help you navigate the complexities of fine art reproduction in our cultural heritage sector. It's not for the faint of heart, as I said in the introduction, but if we accept that challenge, then it can be really satisfying to be able to craft these things where all of these conundrums somehow begin to dissolve into one and the same. And this works if we invest the time and the energy to understand and not just have that knowledge and understanding, but also through experiment, that perfect practice and the innovation required, the colour grading additions needed to a preservation master to make a fit-for-purpose derivative that is then going to fill some other condition, subjective and otherwise. Take care. Look forward to the next encounter.